So then we get to Friday. They start out Friday talking about the ex parte meeting and the questioning of that. Brian Steele is saying he wants to discuss how Judge Glanville and the state worked together to pressure Copeland into testifying, right? Once again, the judge is not allowing anything negative to be said in front of the jury about Judge Glanville. She's like, no, you cannot ask him about Judge. You can't ask him anything about Glanville, anything Glanville said at all. I'm not letting, don't do it, right? So then they're kind of going back and forth a little bit. They're trying to get clarification, like, can we not ask about the ex parte meeting at all? She was pretty much like, no, you can't, because we gave him all the information and we clarified everything already. So there's no need to ask him about the ex parte meeting, because y'all said that y'all wanted the testimony from June 10th up until June 12th to stay in. So if you thought it was coerced, that means it should be thrown out. If you don't think it should be thrown out, then that means you don't think it's a coerced testimony. So Brian Steele's coming back like, no, I do think it was a coerced testimony. And I also think it's relevant to talk about why he was testifying at all. So the judge is like, pretty much like, all right, well, you can ask about things that Attorney Hilton said, but you can't ask about things that Glanville said. And she was kind of flip-flopping. I didn't fully really ever get clarification. So I guess I'm going to have to wait until they cross-examine them to see if the judge stops them from asking about the ex parte meeting at all. So we're going to see about that one. I don't fully know what the judge was saying, because there's old clips. There's clips, and I remember this. The judge told them that she's not going to she's like, I'm not going to make Glanville testify, and I'm not going to make Simone Hilton or Attorney Love testify, because you have the transcript. You can just ask Kenneth Copeland about the meeting yourself. We don't need them to testify. You have all the evidence now in the transcript. The judge definitely told them that they could ask about things from the meeting based on what they have in the transcript. She said, you have the evidence, is right there. It's not Brady anymore, because you have it and you can ask him about it before you cross-examine him. So I'm definitely not understanding why the judge came back today and was like, no, you can't ask about that. I'm very confused. But like I said, we'll wait and see when they actually cross-examine him. And Brian Steele said, I'm just letting you know, Judge, I'm going to ask him about this. Just a heads up. I'm definitely going to ask him. So we'll see what's going on with that. Another thing I thought was interesting in the playback clips of the interviews from back in 2015, Detective Dennis told Woody that Woody and Shell Kell was like Magic and Bird of these shootings in Atlanta. I thought that was crazy. So you're a gang detective. You claim that these two guys that you have a line on are like the Magic and Bird of the street shootings, and you just like them because they keep giving you information, or what? Like, how y'all not locking them up then if you feel like they're the Bird and Magic of the streets, like of the shooting? That's what he was saying. Another thing that Dennis said was that he said something like, between you, he's talking to Woody, between you and Shell Kell, I knew we was going to get something. So that also implies that the two biggest rivals are also both working with the police and giving the police information, that they both working with them. So they're getting information from both sides about each other and not locking either one of them up. It's kind of like insidious that the police would know who's doing the major shootings and leaving them on the streets because they're giving them information. Like, that's we all know that that's happening. We all knew that it's been happening, but the fact that they were even comfortable saying that on camera is kind of crazy to me, because they knew they were being recorded. So they were saying that on camera like, yeah, y'all the Bird and Magic of this thing. Oh, we knew we was going to get something out of you or Kell. One of y'all was going to give us something. So I'm just like, wow, that's kind of crazy that these police are on camera saying that and it's not causing like a thing. But the detective is telling them like, look, we know that it's you and Shell Kell doing this, because when y'all two are locked up, this is on Friday now, the part we heard on Friday from June 10th. When y'all two are locked up, the shootings are down. There's really no shootings happening when both of y'all are locked up. So even the people that ride with y'all, they're not even doing a bunch of shootings when y'all are gone. But soon as both of y'all get free, or one of y'all get free, shootings start happening again in the city, in these areas. So again, I thought it was crazy that the police had that much information on people who are supposedly shooters out here and committing these heinous acts, and they're just letting them stay free because they're feeding them information. That was kind of wild to me. Y'all let me know. Again, y'all, I don't have the chat up here right now, so if y'all are saying something to me, I'm going to catch it when I finish. Trust me, I'm going to get to it. So, and please like and subscribe if you're not subscribed. So, I thought that was wild, right? The cop is telling Kenneth Copeland, yeah, we call you Killer Copeland. We call you Killer Copeland. So, again, these people are recognizing him as an active member, active hitter, and they're like, yeah, we all know you as that, but we get information out of you. We're not doing anything to you. You got a possession by a felon, possession of a firearm by a felon. This is the feds messing with you. This ain't us messing with you. We just need you to give us some information and help yourself out. Whole time they know they couldn't help himself out with that because the feds have a mandatory minimum of a possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. So nothing he gave them could have helped his time anyway. That's why he still got the 5-year sentence, because that's a mandatory minimum. That's what they put them in place for. So I thought it was interesting, right? Now they played all of this and this went through whatever. I didn't see anything else that was like super worthy of talking about in the interviews. But now later on in the afternoon, they starts to argue because they had technical difficulties and they had to send the jury home for the day. The speakers stopped working or something like that, whatever. Later in the day, they start to argue about the RICO statute, and Brian Steele is arguing that any one of the overt acts that was over 5 years old, it can't be used as the sole reason, or not 5 years old, but 5 years before the indictment came down, right? So if it's more than 5 years before the indictment came, it can't be used as the sole reason to convict them of count 1 with the conspiracy to RICO thing, right? So the judge is like, yeah, that's the law, whatever. And then the state is like, yeah, but it can be considered because of all of these list of other reasons. And in her saying this, another thing she also said is that there are still overt acts taking place right now that they plan on discussing in trial, and the jury should also consider when considering whether or not these guys are guilty of these conspiracy and RICO acts, right? The judge is like, you can't use new acts that happened after the indictment to indict somebody on a RICO if it wasn't happening before the charge of the conspiracy, right? Attorney Love is like, yes, you can, and I got case law for you. Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna get it to you. Whitaker is like, that's interesting. Never heard of that. I can't wait for you to get me the case law because I can't wait to read that because I never heard of that. Love is like, trust me, you definitely need to read this because you can definitely consider and convict somebody based on acts that continue on after the indictment happens. So what Attorney Love is now asserting, and then I'm guessing the defense is just now hearing about this, things that are happening in jail right now, or since the indictment happened, or since they've been locked up, there are things happening in the jail that are being considered overt acts by YSL. Now, I don't know what those overt acts are because they haven't told us yet, but I'm assuming they have to do with communication, maybe people catching jail charges, like charges while they're in jail, maybe people passing notes to each other. Anything can be used, like they can consider anything an overt act when it deals with communication between two gang members within the same gang, right? So I think that was kind of a bombshell right there. We heard a lot of bombshells, most of them on the defense side, but I think that was a bombshell because you got the prosecution pretty much saying this is an ongoing and active investigation that we are continuing to use resources to watch these people while they are in jail, not for some new case we plan on building, but for the case we have already indicted back in 2022. Because of the way the RICO statute is set up, I guess it allows for the consideration of really anything that these people do in concert with each other. Another thing she mentioned, right, is that not only can these people be convicted for the things that are in this indictment, they can also be convicted for the things that are not in the indictment, that are considered overt acts. That's one. They can also be convicted of, or they can also be, convicted of if one of their co-conspirators commits an overt act and the jury finds that all of them are part of the same organization and conspiracy, the jury convict all of them of the RICO because of the act that's committed by one of them. Right? Now, that might sound basic to some people, but it might sound like, wow. What that pretty much means is all of these people are considered to be YSL, right? So the state is trying to establish that they're all YSL gang members, right? If the jury says, okay, yes, these people are all YSL gang members, we, the jury, agree with that. If the jury agrees with, yes, they're all YSL gang members, and then one person that's considered a YSL gang member commits one of these quote unquote overt acts, they can all be convicted for what that one person did as far as part of this conspiracy count, the count one of the RICO, right? With that said, not only, now this was another one that was kind of crazy to me. Not only does that extend to all 28 defendants, that also, according to Attorney Love, that also extends to co-conspirators who are not indicted. That includes Kenneth Copeland. Think about this. That includes non-indicted co-conspirators. If Kenneth Copeland is up there admitting to things and he is being labeled a co-conspirator, that's a trick. That's a trap, actually. So that means that the state can say at the end, like closing arguments, hey, the way the statute works is if any one of these people commits a crime and you guys find that all of them are YSL, the stuff that Kenneth Copeland admitted to, that applies to all of them because they all act in concert with one another and it's a conspiracy. They conspired to commit these acts to further their criminal enterprise or further the reputation of their gang, right? So Kenneth Copeland and Tay shooting at Rich Homie Quan's barbershop, Rich Homie Quan's dad's barbershop, helps to further the reputation of all of YSL. So they're all guilty for that. That's pretty much what Attorney Love said this afternoon. And I was like, wow. This RICO statute is like, has long arms on it. It has long arms and many tentacles and many legs on it because it is far reaching and it's kind of crazy. I knew it was crazy anyway, because when I realized that they could use this RICO thing to wrap people up and reconvict them for something they were already convicted for, I realized that this was a crazy statute. But now, hearing that you can consider somebody a co-conspirator, but they are not indicted, but you can still use things they did against the people who are indicted, my mind is kind of blown by that. I'm confused, but my mind is really blown that there are laws, statutes, and case law in place that allow stuff like that. So this is really a trial of, I'm gonna convict you for the things your friends did. That's essentially what we're looking at. I'm gonna convict you for the things your friends are doing, and there's honestly no way around it because some of your friends took plea deals, meaning they already agreed to some of these overt acts. And since I can convict you based on what they did, y'all are all stuck. Now, this is what I mean. This is what I meant last week or whatever day that was when I said that Attorney Love fumbled an unbeatable case. When you have laws in place that have wording like this, it's unbeatable by pretty much anybody, right? So really, the only way I think that you still get a jury is not going to, I don't think you get a full jury saying that these guys are guilty. And it could end in a mistrial if the prosecution keeps on messing up with his evidence, right? Or if something else comes out about the prosecution leaving some Brady evidence out, which could happen because they still have to figure out what was said in that Antonio Sledge interview with the state, right? Remember, because that still hasn't come back yet. Where if he says something different in his interview with the state, his one-on-one interview with the state, different from what's in his plea deal, that's Brady material. They didn't turn it over. That'd be a violation. You might have an issue with that. However, this on paper, had they had an ethical judge from the beginning that was fair, and they had prosecution that was also just going by the book, there would be zero chance that YSL could beat this case the way these statutes are written, the way the case law supports what the state is doing. There would be no chance that they could beat it. But because there was an unethical judge and a partial judge, and because you have an unethical prosecution team doing any old dirty tactic that they can do to get a conviction, you might see these guys have a chance, right? On paper, there's no way they're supposed to beat it, though. I'm going to just be real. There's no way. I'm going to just be real with it. Now, another argument that came over Friday afternoon was Max Sharp brought up the fact that the state is bringing up and using these witnesses' plea deals in evidence, right? Showing it to the jury, just pretty much looking at them and using them, right? And the judge is like, y'all not doing that, or y'all shouldn't be doing it that way, right? Then Attorney Love stands up and says, well, we have to do it because these these witnesses are coming up here and essentially getting amnesia. They're coming up here acting like they don't remember anything, even though they agreed to it. They're coming up in here acting like they didn't know what these words meant. And Attorney Love, she pretty much put them on blast and said, hey, every single person who took a plea deal, we gave them a copy of our original plea deal and our factual acknowledgments. Every single one of them sent the plea deal back with corrections, and we made corrections for them based on what they said was true. They didn't even agree to the stuff, these factual acknowledgments, until they corrected things in these factual acknowledgments. So when a person says that they had personal knowledge of somebody in YSL committing the Donovan Thomas murder, he made that statement. He didn't make the statement on his own, but we had a different statement. He corrected it and put that statement. That's what the state is saying. The state is saying everybody who took a deal, they all made corrections and they all left those plea deals as they were after they made corrections. Remember, they talked about that with Trontavia Stevens when he was saying that he didn't understand it. And Attorney Love was like, well, don't you remember we sent this to you and then you sent it back and told us to fix XYZ wording? And then we gave it back to you and you signed it. Don't you remember that? He was like, yeah. So she was like, yeah, all right, get out of here with that. You don't understand stuff. So